All right. Good morning. I'm having the experience of using my iPad as a monitor for my camera. I made a short video this morning and had a most remarkable discovery. Fast internet. My God. When I was in the Amazon, it took me a couple of hours, more than a couple of hours, and walking around to coffee shops to find a fast connection to upload a video to YouTube. And I loaded it up here this morning in like 4 minutes. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? So I'm in Jerico Sunday. A week from now, I'll be back in Colorado. A week from yesterday, actually, I'll be waking up and having coffee at home. And I haven't done a lot of writing. I was talking to my friend Deb yesterday. Hi, Deb. About the trade-off. It's not writing. I'm really just concentrating on the experience. At the same time, I realize how much I enjoy writing, especially when I'm traveling. And so I thought what I would do is kind of do a verbal version of a trip wrap-up that I might write. So right now, it's kind of surreal. Last summer, I got the idea for doing this trip. And as I've said several times, I'm going back to places that I either have loved or I wanted to see again before they changed a lot. And I consistently get the questions like, where are you going next? I don't know. I don't have a list. I don't prioritize them. That's too left brain for me. I do have ideas. So if I was to take those ideas and put them together on a sheet of paper, I don't do lists. That just doesn't fit for me. So if I made a mind map of them, there are places like Spain, Portugal, southern France, Italy, Sicily, and then parts of Africa. Also, the idea of going to Ecuador, I'm going to order a new hard drive so that I have one place where I can put all my former travel libraries and all the slides and photos and negatives that I'm going to get scanned and digitized. So I thought about taking those in a new hard drive and going someplace like Ecuador and combining work on photos with seeing a new habitat. So when I was at Hacienda Guayabal, they had 25 species of hummingbirds, which is just fascinating. Ecuador has 130 species of hummingbirds, so that's on my list. That's more on my list than getting out to see Galapagos. Don't know why, it's just the way it works for me. So at this point, I don't have a list, I don't have a plan, but I start having ideas occur to me on like, what would be a nice experience to have next? And then it either comes together and grows and builds and pulls me along, or it doesn't. So I made a short video this morning I'm going to post with this, and that's my packing video. At one time in my life, I traveled with an 80-liter backpack, and I have no idea how I did that. It wasn't designed well, it was heavy, and it was hot, so I didn't have a lot of ventilation. So now I have a 50 plus 10 is what it's called. So it's got an extendable top, it's got great ventilation on the back, it's breathable. And I find the more space I have, the more I take. So I'm going to play with the idea of taking my small 36-liter pack next time. And I'm going to do more research on what kind of technology I can take. Because I do like working with my MacBook Pro. It's heavy. If I get an iPad Pro, it's like, well, there's your solution, but people don't realize that by the time I add a keyboard to that, it's nearly the same weight as the MacBook Pro. So I'll be doing some of that. So here's the surreal part of this. I have this treat. I do this at some point in my trip, more than once on this trip, where I find a place that just looks really special. And this one has. Man, they had the most sensational breakfast this morning. And I'll spend a couple of days relaxing before I go home. I learned over the years that when I travel, pack up, go to my city, jump on the plane, fly home, I do go through travel shock. And I think part of it's just my body's exhausted. So I'm here resting. Today so far, I've gotten up, drank coffee, taken some photos, had breakfast, took a nap, and unloaded my packs. perfect day. So looking back, I'm flashing back to I think it was June-ish. In March and April, May, I'd had really difficulty walking. I was in pain all the time, whether I was sitting, standing, walking, sleeping. I'd go out and walk around my yard, and I just couldn't get down the yard without being in pain. And if I wanted to mow my small yard, I had to do it in 3 different trips because I just couldn't continue after a while. And then I started feeling better. I started doing my self-treatment and other things. And then I thought, so, I'm walking now, where would I like to go? And for some reason, out of the blue, the Amazon popped into my head because, it was there in 1997, I believe. And it was kind of an overwhelmed trip. It was one of my first trips. That year, I rafted the Grand Canyon for 26 days and came to Peru. I did Peru first. But it was kind of like, well, what are places I want to see? And I'm just thrilled that I got to do that. I'll hike the Inca Trail, spend time around Cusco in the Sacred Valley, and then flew to Iquitos. But it was also overwhelmed. So I launched into that and started coming up with plans and ideas. Just as a sidelight, I think I've talked about already. I found companies that advertised that they went to the Pacaya area, which I believe is the second largest reserve in Peru. And then as I dug a little bit deeper, where they don't go into Pacaya, they go around Pacaya because they don't have permits to actually go into the park. So that gave me a track of looking for local, authentic companies that go in. And lo and behold, I found 2 of them that I really liked. And one of them wrote back to me, is like, this is what you do. And I'm like, I don't think so. And they were like 2 or 3 times the cost of this one. And so I wrote to Acatupel, and they were just the most remarkable from the beginning. And told them what I wanted to do and asked them about transport, and everything fell into place. Then about a week before I got there, I realized, I haven't given them a deposit or anything. And they're like, oh, no, just bring us money when you come here. So I dug deep, found companies that are the kind of places and people I like to go with. I did the same thing when I got to Colombia, because there's like what I call corporate coffee tours. 20 or 30 or 40 or 60 people going to famous coffee farms and kind of being herded through. And instead of doing that, I had a stunning experience when I went to Selva Negra in Nicaragua, very personal. And then the same thing when I went to Hacienda Guayabal. So the surreal part is, at one point, my whole focus is on, okay, how do I do this? It's a lot of details, lots of pieces. Fly to Lima, fly to Tarapoto, find places to stay, find transportation, book boats, book schedules, connect with guides, organize days. And, all of that is based on unreliable information, except where I had direct contact. And so now I'm sitting here looking back from Jerico going, it was tense internally, emotionally at times, but when I felt tense, I'm like, you know what? Stop. This is going to work out. It always works out. And so something would show up. And so, the classic example of that is writing to the travel tips for Peru by people who live here and having somebody to write back and say, the boat that goes there leaves on this day from this harbor. So go there, talk to them. So I headed to that harbor and like, no, our boats don't go there. They go the other direction. So in the course of that, I got a name of another port, and I went there. And it was kind of overwhelmed because you go to the entry, a motorbike driver drops me, and I walk in. And everybody, once you get on their boat, you kind of get swarmed with people. And this one man, I told him, it's like, no, it's not for today. It's for next week. And so he's the one that turned around and pointed and showed me the area where the boat would be parked and told me that it was like Charlie on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. It's parked right there. So when I came back to Iquitos, I had 2 nights reserved at the hostel. And the first morning, or the first afternoon when I got there, I took a taxi and went back. I think I got there at like 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning. So I took a tuk-tuk motorbike taxi, and as we're going, the man it was an odd, some of them are really happy to help you, but this guy felt a little bit slick. And when I told him I wanted to go to Leticia and take the boat, and then he mentioned the port and kind of was like, no. And he mentioned something else I couldn't understand over the sound of the motorbike. So about 10 minutes later, we pulled over, and there's a big banner sign on the side of the road. And it was for Diego Dos at 7 o'clock, and it goes on Monday and Wednesday. So he's like, do you want to go? So we went down to the port. I got off the motorbike. People in the port pointed me to the boat, and they're loading up to go this afternoon. Come back, or tomorrow afternoon, come back at 3 o'clock, something. I think it was this afternoon. So instead of spending 2 nights at the hostel, I spent 1 night at the hostel, got my gear together, came back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so in spite of all the confusion and uncertainty, and that's what a trip like this involves. So when I got to Rio Sucio, I was supposed to take Chiva to come over to Jardín. And even though the owner of Hacienda Guayaba had called and gotten the schedule, it wasn't there. Didn't leave at that time. So I'm like, okay, plan B. And, it turned out to be a really comfortable bus, but it was maybe double the time because of the travel. It went on the best roads and circuited around. So here I am looking back and feeling grateful and such appreciation that somehow I learned how to do this. I still have memories of milking cows in the barn with a kerosene lamp, listening to KXXX radio from Colby, Kansas. We had a dirt floor, kerosene lamp, driving tractors, weeding the weed and brake on the the northwest part of our farm. Driving tractor, fixing fence, chasing cows, How did I get from there? In growing up in Atwood, I've said this several times, I didn't grow up in Atwood. I grew up on the farm. And even though it was only 12 miles away, it was a different planet. And so, I'm going back for my reunion. And I knew the people that were my classmates. I knew these people from school, but not from life. We didn't go to the same church. I didn't see them in the grocery store. I didn't hang out in the summertime, didn't do sleepovers, Cub Scouts. So on the farm, it was kind of like chores, responsibilities, just was the way of life that, pick up from mom and dad, because that's what it took to take care of the farm, run a business, take care of a family. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, I learned how to plan a trip myself, come down here, have this amazing experience. And, in 6 weeks, except for the Toyo Lodge, I think that was $1,600 for 8 days, food, guide, transport, everything. That's one of the more expensive tours that I've ever done. When I was in the forest with Toyo, I think I spent $300 for 5 days. Food, guide, everything. So I have the option now of, one time in my life, $5 was a lot of money, and you could stay in places for that or less. And so now, not only have I learned how to travel, but I've learned enough wisdom to know, find a really nice place, park my butt, eat good food, rest, relax, restore, refresh. And so that's what I'm doing here. So it's been an awesome trip. My next adventure is going back to Kansas for 55th year high school reunion. Yay. And then after that, who knows? We'll wait and see what shows up. So I just thought, instead of being able to sit down and write, I wanted to create a summary video, and this is it. So it's pretty cool that I can actually see this on my iPad and monitor it. So watch this. I'm going to wave goodbye and push this red button and watch what happens.